What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, February 10th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 1600 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we currently have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert for some reason. We also have some very unusual activity off the coast of Mexico in the Baja California area. So what you're looking at here are the flight paths of nearly a dozen U.S. aerial refuelers off the coast of the Baja California Peninsula. This is extremely unusual. I cannot emphasize to you guys how unusual this is. This is actually the first time I've ever seen this kind of activity before, and I've been tracking flights almost on a daily basis for the last several years. So this could potentially indicate that the U.S. is getting ready to strike Mexico, to strike the cartels. This is extremely unusual, guys. All of these aerial refuelers took off from Sacramento. You can see some of them heading back, but some of them are still off the coast of California. Looks like we have another plane heading down here. Okay, but they're all doing loops right off of Baja California. And just last week we had recon assets flying in this area. We had an RC-135 rivet joint, which is a U.S. military recon plane, take off from Stratcom headquarters in Offutt Air Base and fly all the way down here and into the Gulf of California. And now we have these aerial refuelers here, nearly a dozen of them looping off the coast of Baja California. And also a few days ago, we had high priority recon planes patrolling the Tex-Mex border. We had a combat Sentinel take off from Offutt Air Base, and it was flying east to west for several hours in western Texas, looking down into Mexico. At the same time, there was a P-8 Poseidon and a RC-135 rivet joint doing the same thing along the Tex-Mex border. So potentially the Trump administration is getting ready to launch strikes on the cartels. This is very, very unusual. Now, in addition to that, we have a B-52 nuclear bomber airborne right now, and a presidential Doomsday plane, and a nuclear war command and control plane. And what's most interesting about all of those is that the B-52 got aerially refueled over the Ozark Mountains by 3 aerial refuelers, and then also the Doomsday plane, the presidential Doomsday plane, got aerially refueled, and it's been flying with its tracker turned off. Okay, which is also very, very unusual. So something is going on. Here you can see the nuclear war command and control plane that's been airborne all day. It is now over South Carolina. And then here's the Doomsday plane. Took off from Offutt Air Base, went towards Missouri, got aerially refueled somewhere over here, turned its tracker off, and it is now looping over Offutt Air Base with its tracker turned off, looping over Omaha, Nebraska. I have a spotter on the ground that's been sending me videos of this Doomsday plane still looping in the air over Omaha, Nebraska. So something is going on. I don't know what. Okay, here's a screenshot from earlier today showing that Doomsday plane getting aerially refueled over eastern Kansas near Kansas City. And here's the B-52 that took off from Shreveport and got aerially refueled here over the Ozarks and Oklahoma. And here we have video footage from my spotter on the ground in Omaha, Nebraska, recording this presidential Doomsday plane in the air as of just an hour ago when this video was sent to me. Okay, looping with its tracker off. It's just been looping like that all afternoon. And we have some major breaking news coming in from Russia. So multiple sources are now reporting that last week Russia failed to launch one of their ICBMs. Apparently they were testing their Satan II missile, which is their largest missile. It's liquid fueled, and it's the largest missile in the world, actually. Well, apparently it blew up in the silo, and here you can see some satellite imagery showing this massive crater in the ground where the silo was and where the missile actually blew up. And various sources are reporting that this was the Satan II missile. This is the feared missile that Russia has been bragging about, saying that they could take out all of the UK and they could destroy an entire American state with just one of these missiles. But it looks like Putin had an issue getting his missile up. And here we have another satellite image showing that massive crater. And last week we were live streaming while they were doing this test launch, and all of Ukraine was lit up under air raid alerts. Initially it was reported that it was a failed Oreshnik strike on Ukraine, and I reported on that, but now it looks like it was a failed Satan II launch, and the missile actually blew up in the silo, okay? And some VIPs from the US are going to be heading to Europe this week. Here we have Pete Hegseth boarding a plane bound for Europe. Looks like his wife with him, and he's the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Also, Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be joining him, as well as Keith Kellogg, the special representative to Ukraine. So some really, really important people from the Trump administration going to Europe this week for the Munich Security Conference. It's possible that this week Trump may reveal his Ukraine peace plan. Obviously, Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance and Keith Kellogg are going to be talking a lot about Ukraine. That's probably the main purpose of this trip, is to talk about Ukraine, NATO, and other regional issues, okay? But this would be the first big visit of the Trump administration to Europe to meet with NATO leaders. Now, Trump personally met with Zelensky and Emmanuel Macron last year in September before the actual election. He went there and he met with Zelensky and Macron, and they talked about possibly setting up peacekeepers in Ukraine and some kind of a peace deal that would involve thousands of NATO forces on the front lines in Ukraine. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens and what Trump's peace plan is going to entail. You know, will it entail NATO forces going into Ukraine and being deployed by the tens of thousands to the border of the occupied territories? We'll have to wait and see, but that could potentially cause escalation. Okay, think about it. 50,000 NATO forces in Ukraine, standing literally right next to Russia, okay? I don't think Russia's going to really like that. So I personally don't think there's going to be any breakthrough. I hope there is, but I don't think Putin is going to sign any peace deal, simply because it's not going to be good for him, okay? A peace deal would allow Ukraine to rearm, and it would basically be a win for the West, because remember, Russia wants to demilitarize Ukraine. They want to weaken Ukraine to the point where they have no more military capability. They want to destroy their economy, okay? And if there's a peace deal, then Ukraine is going to be able to rearm, rebuild, and that would basically be a failure for Russia, okay? So I don't think Putin's going to go for anything short of something that would achieve his full demands, okay? And Trump is not going to go for that. NATO's not going to go for that. And certainly Ukraine is not going to go for that. So I don't see any miraculous breakthroughs here. So just be prepared for that, okay? And the ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel has reportedly fell through. Hamas announced today that they were canceling the release of hostages on February 15th until further notice due to an Israeli violation. And Israel says that the Hamas hostage release delay violates the ceasefire deal, and the Israeli military has been now put on the highest alert. Servicemen have been recalled from leave. So this is very, very serious, and I want to read to you what the Israeli defense minister said today. He said, "This is a complete violation of the ceasefire agreement. I've instructed the IDF to maintain maximum readiness for any scenario in Gaza and to protect communities. We will not return to the reality of October 7. Okay, so Israel is not happy about this. Hamas canceling the release of hostages. It's obviously BS what Hamas is saying, okay? They're just making that up because they don't want to release more hostages. They want to get more in return for those hostages, so they're just making that up. And Europe is considering seizing tankers carrying Russian oil through the Baltic Sea, so that is huge news, guys. And remember, over the weekend, another cable was cut in the Baltic. This time it was actually a Russian cable that was cut. Okay, so potentially NATO cut a Russian cable now. So you see how things are escalating. Also, the Baltics desynchronized from the Russian power grid. So previously, the Baltics were getting electricity from Russia. Well, they have now disconnected their power supply from Russia completely, and they are now reliant on the rest of Europe to get their electricity. And this could potentially cause Putin to attack the Baltics because of Kaliningrad, okay? If the Baltics disconnect from the Russian power grid, then how is Kaliningrad going to get their electricity, okay? Because the electricity was flowing through the Baltics and then into Kaliningrad, but now the Baltics have cut that supply of electricity. And the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei, said earlier today that if America threatens our security, we will threaten its security. We made concessions, negotiated, and reached compromises, but we did not achieve the result we were aiming for. If the Americans attack the security of the Iranian people, we will attack their security without hesitation. So, very interesting, okay? He's clearly saying if America threatens our security, we will threaten its security. Sounds like the leader of Iran is pooping bricks because he's afraid that Trump and Netanyahu are going to strike his nuclear facilities, okay? Which I think is definitely going to happen. It's not a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. Okay, and it could happen sometime later in the spring or in the summer. And apparently J.D. Vance, the vice president of the U.S., is going to be meeting with Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference. And Zelensky said that Trump officials will be visiting Ukraine this week before the Munich Security Conference, okay? And Norwegian F-35s have now been deployed to Poland as part of NATO's efforts to beef up security in the eastern part of the alliance. Norwegian anti-air systems have also been deployed at the NATO weapons hub for Ukraine in Rzeszów in southeastern Poland. Interestingly, a few weeks ago, the Germans deployed more Patriot missile batteries to Rzeszów as well. So obviously NATO is concerned about something going on in Poland. If they're sending more F-35s, more anti-air systems, more Patriot systems, okay? And Xi Jinping, the president of China, accepted an invitation to go to the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow this year. That's in May. And that's when Russia celebrates their victory over the Nazis in World War II. And the Ukrainians hit another oil refinery in Russia. Overnight last night, Ukrainian drones hit the Afipsky oil refinery, the oldest operational refinery in Russia. A massive fire broke out. The capacity of this refinery is 6.2 million tons of oil per year. Okay, so lots and lots of strikes on Russia's oil. Definitely going to have an effect on their bottom line. Okay, Russia makes a lot of money off of oil and gas. They export a lot. And if Ukraine takes out 25% of their refineries, that's a big problem. And I think right now Putin is probably waiting for any kind of big strike. He wants to see what Trump's peace proposal is first. But I do think once Putin rejects the peace proposal, which I think is what's going to happen, then we're going to see massive strikes on Ukraine resume. Okay, potentially another Oreshnik if Putin can get that missile up. And last night during the Super Bowl, we had a P-8 Poseidon patrolling the Tex-Mex border, which is a very unusual way to use a P-8 Poseidon because these are sub-hunting planes. They're used to detect subs underwater. Well, they've been using them to patrol the Tex-Mex border, the western part of the Tex-Mex border. And you can see here it was flying really low all along the border here in the Big Bend area. And also, Trump was at the Super Bowl last night, and there was an aerial refueler circling New Orleans, providing refueling support to probably Doomsday planes and fighter jets in the area. And here's a closer look at the aerial refueler. And we had this F-16 fly over a village in Ukraine. This is one of the first videos of a U.S. F-16 being used in combat by the Ukrainians. Let me just play this for you. It's just incredible how fast that plane is, and look at how low it's flying. But based on this video, some open source intelligence analysts have found out that this F-16 was carrying 2 fuel tanks, an AN/ALQ-131 jamming pod, GBU-39 SDB air-to-ground bombs, and 2 AIM-120B MRAMs, which are medium-range air-to-air missiles. So this thing was fully loaded with, massive bombs, jammers, and medium-range dogfighting missiles. So impressive loadout, impressive flying skills here by the Ukrainians. Look at how low that F-16 is. I mean, just, maybe 200-300 feet above these houses here. So there's no denying the power of America's military. And we have some more earthquakes in the Greek islands today. There was another 5.2 magnitude earthquake just an hour ago. Okay, very, very concerning. And just over the last few hours, look at all of these earthquakes, guys. It looks like every couple of minutes there's a small earthquake over there. I mean, this is going back just 8 hours. Look at all these earthquakes, guys. These are all earthquakes. Every couple of minutes. There was a 4.6 8 hours ago. Okay, so we have to keep an eye on the Greek islands. A lot of experts are saying that there could be some kind of massive quake because these quakes keep getting stronger and stronger. They're not weakening, okay? So, and also we had Popocatépetl erupt this morning. Again, this is a massive stratovolcano in Mexico, and if this thing ever really erupted in a serious way, it could potentially cause a global ice age, okay? So we have to keep an eye on this volcano. And President Trump announced today that they will not be producing pennies anymore because apparently it costs more to produce pennies than the pennies are actually worth. And Elon Musk's Doge team found that FEMA sent $60 million to New York City luxury hotels to house illegal immigrants. Wow. And here we have some video footage coming out of Philadelphia last night after the Eagles won. There was just total chaos in Philly. All of these gangs and college kids got drunk and they were just causing chaos. You can see them here stomping this street sign after taking it down, and Pennsylvania State Police and Philadelphia Police responded quickly with horseback police, riot police. So it was quickly quelled within just a couple of hours, but there was some damage done. Some officers were injured. Okay, but the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. They absolutely dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with another update. If not, I'll check into the stream. And if anything else happens with our nuclear forces, I'll definitely keep you updated. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.